Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome. What an evening, what a night. Live to the nation at 6. It's like, I feel a bit like Boris. I don't know whether you guys are with me, but I'm anticipating quite a few people will be jumping onto this live. If you are, usual rules. Pop down there, press the blue button, say you're here. That would be great. You can pop things into the feed, but if the eyes on this video become the numbers that I think they might, I can't guarantee I'm going to answer them all, but bear with. Welcome. I had a great live prepared, covering all sorts of things, and I've literally just come off the PM's press conference, and I've ripped the piece of paper up and thought I'll start again. So it's literally, I mean, it's not just hot off the press, it's like think immediately, Heather, and come up with an answer. And so you're going to have to forgive me in some respects, because I think this is going to evolve, and a lot of what I'm going to say is going to be a little bit shoot from the hip, but we're going to go with what we've got. Can I, first of all, say huge thank you for all your positive, lovely messages about how helpful this has been and how helpful the videos have been. And I can't tell you how fab it is to see that sort of response from people who I know very well and I've been working with over a long time, but also from brand new people who I have never met and never had any dealing with, and suddenly they're on here going, oh, this is fab, this is exactly what we need. I think the video's been viewed about 10,000 times, and probably half of those people have attempted to contact me in the meantime. So if you are one of those people waiting on an answer, please be patient, because it is mental here and I'm trying my very best to catch up, but it is not easy. More of that in a little moment. I am going to talk this evening about frustration of contracts, bearing in mind what our esteemed leader has just told us not 25 minutes ago. And I've already seen on the feed questions about whether or not, does that count weddings? Is that events? Is that all events? Is that our event? Do we have to? Is that, as is essential? Weddings are essential. And I noticed when Boris was talking, he very carefully sidestepped the question of how this is to be enforced. But the edict is non-essential travel, non-essential meetings are now you're asked to avoid. I think you can, for that, read not allowed. I don't think there's going to be a law that says you will be shut, but I think that will be enforced in some way, shape or form. I'm not quite sure what that means. In other European countries, that lockdown is much more severe and very much more enforced. We may get there by the end of this week. Who knows? But I think the most important thing is to remember that this is about containment. As much as we've all got business issues going on, this is about containing and trying to act with the science, information and with the advice. So I'm going to preference this by saying I think we are now in force majeure territory. And as a result, that's what I'm mainly going to talk about today. I have posted on the blog, on the Stanford Gould Online blog, there's a blog this morning posted which tells you a little bit more about what happens in the event of force majeure, and I'm going to assume that you can locate that, find it and read it. So I'm not going to repeat it. Some bits will be relevant as we go along, but it's there, and I'll put a link in the feed below if you need to find it. It's on the stanfordgouldonline.co.uk website. But I think let's assume for a minute that the lockdown is a lockdown, that we are talking about closed social spaces, closed social gatherings, then I think we are in force majeure scenario, okay? Now, I've had lots of people who've been on the feed saying, what the bloody hell is a force majeure? Don't understand it, don't understand what it is. It is an action or a situation which arises which is completely out of the control of either of the contracting parties. So it could be a flood, it could be a fire, assuming no one set fire to something. It could be, in this case, a government edict of behaviour or prohibition or something similar. That's what we are dealing with here. A force majeure is something that applies, and essentially it cannot be controlled, and it means that the contract cannot now be delivered. Okay? Now, in a frustration situation, it is as if the contract never existed. Okay? No one is obligated to continue to provide the services under that contract, and nobody is obligated to pay for those services which are not yet paid for under the contract. So this is your nightmare scenario, okay? Because first principles say you would go back to a position where everyone started at the beginning, and that is problematic. There's information about this on the blog, okay? What I'm going to say to you is really, knowing that that's the position, and you'll need to go away and read it, what are you going to do now? That's the question you're asking. Well, that's all very well, Heather. Lovely explanation of the legal niceties. What do I do? Okay, so I'm going to give you a suggested course of action that I think is a practical one. I think we don't know how long this lockdown, I'm going to call it lockdown because it's easiest, we don't know how long this lockdown is going to last for. I think we can safely assume it will be at least 2 weeks, maybe it will be longer than that. So my advice is, if you've got to deal with your customers regarding force majeure, you are really dealing with customers who have got a wedding planned in the next 4 weeks. And the reason I'm looking to my side, to my right, is because I'm checking what the calendar dates are. So today's the 16th of March. I think anybody who you have got a wedding to supply to between now and let's say the 19th of April, those are the people that you have got to deal with thinking about force majeure. And next week, you'll deal with the people who have got weddings booked for the 24th onwards. And the week after that, you'll deal with people who've got weddings in the first week of May, and so on. So you've got a rolling programme of a 4-week block of people that you need to talk to, communicate with, have a conversation with, and it's going to be a difficult one, so just gird your loins. Deal with those people in that block, okay? People who've got weddings booked for November and October, do not worry about, well, no, that's a stupid thing to say. Do not deal with in this context, okay? They have to park and wait because nobody knows how long this is going to go on for. But my advice is just look at people who are in your immediate eye line, that's within the next 2 to 4 weeks. And those are the people that you are going to need to sort out, okay? If the starting point is force majeure, contract never existed, no more money is going to come to you. No more payment's going to arrive. You're not going to have to do anything to deliver those services, but what are you going to do instead? And this is where you're going to have a conversation which is probably less legal and very much more customer focused, practically based. It's going to be emotional. There's going to be lots of frayed people, very, very frightened about their livelihoods on the one hand and their big day on the other. Terrible combo for having a difficult conversation, I entirely accept, but that's what you guys are going to have to do. This is about negotiation, this is about communication, this is about trying to accommodate people, this is about options of paying back money. It might be all of it, it might be part of it, it might be some sort of instalment arrangements that you have to agree. Anything and everything is on the table, I would suggest, as part of this negotiation. Some people will be saying, I don't have that money, I just don't have the cash flow to do it. And certainly if I'm not doing any more weddings for another month, I have no money. So, you can't extract the proverbial blood out of the stone. If that's your situation, then, that's the conversation you may have to have. But a negotiation in this situation, if you're able to agree some sort of deal with your customer, I suggest that's likely to be something that you both feel a bit aggrieved about, okay? By which I mean a compromise is usually you don't get everything you want and they don't get everything they want either. It's a meeting in the middle somewhere. So if the contract's frustrated and you're going back to first principles and they say, we want all our money back, The compromise option might be saying, well, I'll give you some of your money back because I have A, done some of the services, B, done some of the prep, C, provided you with, I don't know, a mood board, a design, you've done something for your money. And in that situation, you hope that you'll be able to deal with some sort of compromise. As I say, a settlement, a good negotiated settlement, leaves everybody feeling a little bit pissed off. That's the reality. And I say that from 20 years of working in litigation. And I don't for a second underestimate how hard that will be for everybody, because, it's easy for me to sit here and go, well, just do a deal. Yeah, just do a deal. Oh my Lord, that's not easy. I totally get that. But that's the way forward, because this is the stuff that absolute nightmare litigation is made of. Okay, so if you ever wanted to not have a legal claim, it would be the one that you would not want is one that was a contract that was frustrated with an emotionally charged delivery at a relatively low cost for litigation, with real complexities of legal argument and frustration. The doctrine of frustration is incredibly complex. You do not want to go there. I promise you, neither you nor your customer want to get involved into a legal action involving these sorts of questions, because the cost of that, the complexity of that, will almost certainly outweigh whatever value you're arguing about. My advice is get advice. There is no one size fits all. There is no one solution that's going to work for every customer. You are going to have to pick the phone up and you're going to have to talk to these people, and you're going to have to come up with something that works. And I don't underestimate how hard that is. Take some advice. There are lots and lots of people in the same situation, lots and lots of support. You might even think about whether or not there's someone who can mediate between you and your customer. This is a bit of a thought off the top of my head, but I'm thinking about it as practically as possible. If you've got someone within a group who could act as an impartial to try and reach some sort of deal, if your discussions directly with your customer break down, that would be brilliant. I'd offer to do it myself, but frankly, I don't think I've got the time. And there are loads of people in our groups, in our Facebook groups, who have more than enough knowledge of the industry and knowledge of what you do to see how that's going to work. So it is going to be a rough old ride, guys. It really is. And I don't underestimate it. But get on the phones and start talking to people, just those people in that immediate 2 to 4 week window. Everybody else is going to have to wait and see how it works. I've been asked 4 times today how long I think this is going to last, and I have no flipping idea. If I had that crystal ball, we'd all be happy, wouldn't we? Because I'd tell you what to do and then we'd go away and do it. But nobody knows. Nobody knows. And we've got to be really careful. Now, before I go on to anything else, I'm just going to look at some of these questions that are popping up, because I've got some... Right. Okay, so Chloe says, so even though they aren't enforcing events are banned, we shouldn't be going ahead with them. I still have a small wedding in April with 44 people that's paid balance. I don't think you can. I'm not the law. I am not the law. I think, though, on the basis of what's been said 25 minutes ago, that is a non-essential travel, non-essential gathering. That would be my view. And the consequences apply. Is offering a postponement a compromise? Kirsty says, yes, absolutely it is. Yeah. If you can work out a deal that postpones to a later time, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in a second, yeah, that's a win-win, isn't it? That's a win-win. There's a cash flow issue around that, we'll come back to. How would you recommend that deposits fit into this repayment? It doesn't matter what your contract says about your deposit, okay? So if your contract is clear all over that it's a non-refundable, if we are in a frustrated contract, the contract is as if the contract no longer exists. So just because it says unrefundable does not mean it's not refundable. It's going to depend on whether or not you've supplied something or done something as sort of preparatory work to your end delivery. So I said in the article this morning, if you are a planner and you've started work on a wedding and your deposit is covering some of that work, that's justifiable argument to go back to your customer and say, I really should keep this. If, however, you're a photographer and you've taken the deposit just to secure the date and you've done nothing else, you might not have had a consultation, I don't know, depends on how you work, that's a little bit more difficult to justify keeping it. Okay, it's difficult. This is difficult stuff. Okay. Now, this is a question that Natasha asked earlier about, she's got a couple who live in Switzerland to get married here and people are on lockdown, and she was asking about what law applies. Now, this is something lawyers call the conflict of laws. Oh my God, what a flipping nightmare that sounds. And it is. The short answer is, in your terms, you should have a jurisdiction clause. That jurisdiction clause fixes the law that applies to your contract. Okay, so typically you would see something in a contract that said, this contract is subject to the laws of England and Wales. If you lived here, or if you live in Scotland, you might say subject to Scottish law. Those two are not the same. Please be careful. If your contract has that jurisdiction clause, no matter where your couple are, it is subject to the law here, and that includes the law of frustration. So if your couple can't get here from Switzerland, that probably will be a frustration event, but the law applicable around that will be English and Welsh, if that's what your contract says. If your contract is silent on this, it's a bit more grey. Okay, I can't give you a definitive answer to that, but because it depends on where the contract was substantially completed and where it's going to be serviced, and it's not a straightforward answer. But hopefully the frustration point is the same wherever someone is. The question is which law applies. I have no idea whether Switzerland has a doctrine of frustration or whether it works in a similar way contractually. I'm not qualified in Switzerland, so I can't help you with that. But hopefully your contract applies English and Welsh law. And if you go onto the the Stamford Gould page and look through the videos, there's a video about this on destination weddings. That might help you. It's not in the context of this nonsense, but it's separate, and there's a bit of information there. It's also on the YouTube channel, if that helps you. If the couple choose to go ahead with their wedding, I'm not sure the couple are going to be able to go ahead with their wedding, because that creates all sorts of problems for a venue, and indeed for you as suppliers, if you have got workers who you are instructing to go to something which is clearly not, it's a high risk from a health and safety perspective, and is being actively not just discouraged but barred by the government. I don't think you can progress. I'm going to leave that there because we've got 4 more days to go before Saturday. But I think in the light of what was announced 25 minutes ago, I don't think whether your couple chooses or otherwise, I don't think your wedding's going to happen. Okay, if the client has wedding insurance, do we still need to refund? Now, this has popped up again earlier on in the day. This is a real challenge. So up until 5:30 this evening, I was saying to people, stick to your terms. Do not offer refunds, do not offer anything, because if the couple have insurance and if that policy pays out, you don't want to prejudice your position. I think the situation is probably not that much different, but almost certainly a bit different part of the insurance, policy which will kick in. Okay, so a cancellation is one scenario, a frustration, a force majeure is a different scenario, and it will have different clauses in the insurance. They may well act in completely different ways. So again, my advice is you've got to go back to the broker, or you've got to go back to the contract. I'm quite certain John Lewis, Debenhams, all the big providers probably have frequently asked questions on their website, which they've got people scribing away as we speak, changing them in light of what's been discussed at 5:25 this evening. Go back to them, find out from there. I can't give you an absolute definitive answer on that. Katie, is it correct that frustration is not triggered where there is a force majeure in the contract? No, it is not. You can't avoid a force majeure in a contract term. You can't say in your contract, force majeure will not apply. It's not. The force majeure happens if a scenario happens, not because of what's in your contract, and that's why your contract terms become a bit otiose in that scenario, because it's as if the contract never existed. Okay. Very, very, very unusual. Honestly, if you told me on the 10th of Jan that I'd be sitting here on the 16th of March having a conversation about the frustration of contracts, I'd just have laughed at you. But we are where we are. Christy, our contract has a clause that we make a reasonable offer to alternative if that cannot happen. Yeah, do that if you can. I think... realistically, for rescheduling, you probably want to look at any dates after July at the earliest, but I'm guessing. Right, I'm going to try and move on, because this is tough stuff. And what I can't do is give you all a blanket answer to this question. Every case will be different. Every contract term will probably be different. My strong advice is there's going to come a point in everyone's lives, including mine, where what the contract says probably isn't going to be the thing that's going to dictate how you're going to end up dealing with this. You're going to apply some customer care. You're going to apply some common sense. Even those ranting and raving at you about their rights and their contract rights, ultimately threatening to go to court and actually going to court are two very different things. You might have to park it all and let everyone calm down. These things are going to be tough to organise, and I don't underestimate them at all. Okie dokie, right. Right, Anna's asking if the deposit's called a booking fee to secure a date for services, does that change? No. Doesn't matter what it's called. If that is what it does, that's what you've got to justify to your customer. That's the reality. Okay, I'm going to just deal with a couple of other things. So, someone asked earlier on in another group, if I do some sort of deal with my customer, so I reach a compromise, I postpone, I reorganise, I agree to do another date, do I need to get them to sign a fresh contract? Short answer, no. Okay, but write it down. Oh, for God's sake, write it down. What you've agreed and why you have agreed it. An email will do. It does not need to be in technical legal language. The situation is A, B, C, D. We have agreed I'm going to do X, Y, Z. You're going to do A, B, C. Make it simple. Write it down. Okay, because I don't want to think about this happening, but let's assume for a minute we're still here having this conversation come September, and everybody that you reorganise to September, we might have to reorganise again, and we'll be into, oh my lord, well, what did we agree back in March? So write it down. It does not need to be complicated, just keep it as simple as you can, but write it down. Okay, you do not need them to re-sign your terms. I would suggest, with the greatest respect, that sending them another contract in this scenario would probably be the worst thing you could do from a customer relationship perspective. So don't try and get that signed up. If you vary in writing, put it on an email, bang, job's a good one. Okay. Destination weddings and law was a question I was asked earlier. I've answered, and I'll refer you to the other blog. I've had a few people who've suggested, can I send someone else in my place if I am unable to attend? When we were talking about contractual obligations, that was a really, really good idea. Now we're into force majeure territory. Sorry, I'm just checking updates from the news to see if there's anything else I need to talk about. No. If you can find someone who can body double for you to deliver, that's great, but in the current situation, the particular situation around frustration, probably not going to help us terribly much. Now, can I finally, I've been going 25 minutes and I don't really want to do any more than half an hour because I think people get a bit overwhelmed. Can I end by being very practical and being very positive, okay? There is an amazing amount of activity going on on social media and within the wedding industry to try and support businesses. We are all in this, not just you, me as well. I'm just as vulnerable as you are. It's just me working off my kitchen table. I'm just the same as you. If people don't give me work, I don't get paid. If you don't do a wedding, you don't get paid. I totally get that, okay? But there are enormous numbers of very positive ideas starting to filter out. So last week when I did my first live, oh my God, was I ranting about rubbish on social media and and people are just asking stupid questions and suggesting stupid activities. This week, the polar opposite. People positive, people action stations. I would recommend the following, okay? If you are a member of Unconventional Weddings or you follow Lindsay Barford at Unconventional Weddings, they have some help on their site which is connected legal, health and safety and HR. Go and have a look, it's free to access. If you know of the fabulous Celia Gaze at the Wellbeing Farm, she has posted some very practical suggestions about how they're working and some what you might describe as motivational. Come on, guys, let's get a grip on this and do. I'm not one for the motivational quote because it just pisses me off. I'm not interested. But I recommend going and having a look at her site. So that's Celia Gaze at the Wellbeing Farm. She's posted some really good stuff in some posts in some groups. Have a look at what she's doing. Annabelle and Tamrin from Love My Dress have now got the Wedding Industry Action Group. That is also a Facebook group open with all sorts of resources from legals and contracts like me to a bit of well-being and a bit of buoying up and a bit of a space to moan at and a space to scream and pull your hair out and a space to help, I hope. So have a look at that. There are many others and I really congratulate the wedding industry because my God, we've had a week. My God, we've had a week. But we seem to be trying to find some way forward, and that is incredibly encouraging. And I just ask you to, keep the faith, hold on, go in a corner and scream for 10 minutes and then come back and crack on because this isn't going to go away. You're going to have to tackle it. There are people about you who are helping. There are people about you who are in the same position. We will try and do whatever we can to support you, and there are some really, really helpful resources out there, so try and tap into them. From my personal perspective, can I say, again, huge thank you to everybody who's been brilliant. I couldn't have expected when I went on that live, when was that? 9 days ago, that this would have happened in the meantime. And I'm just hugely grateful. But the downside of that is 10,000 people, 10 million? No, not 10 million, 10,000 people looking at it, and me being visible in lots and lots of groups means that I am getting bombarded by questions. I am afraid as of today, I can't answer questions in the feed, questions on pages where lovely contacts and clients say, oh, you need to talk to Heather. Oh, Heather, have you got a view about this? Oh, well, flipping have, but I just haven't got the time to answer all of that. So if you see that sort of feed and I'm not answering, it's not because I don't want to, it's not because I can't, it's just I don't have the time, I really can't. I am prioritising current clients, existing customers, and then I'm trying to work through everybody else as best I can. I will keep posting stuff onto the blog if I think that's helpful. I will keep sharing some of the more general advice that I can. But oh my goodness me, we are in some tough times and it's not going to be easy. Primarily, stay safe, stay well if you can. Keep your loved ones, your family, your friends, your workers, your colleagues, keep them safe. Don't be pushing on with some of this stuff if that's going to give rise to a risk, because that is no good for anybody. And I urge you to try not to be too overwhelmed. We've all been overwhelmed. I've had a couple of moments already this afternoon where I think, oh my God, what we're going to do. Everyone is thinking that. Okay, everyone is thinking that. Get hold of these resources, talk to some people. See if I can help you. I'll try to. But it is literally, let's just, oh my Lord, let's just try and get going and sort something. it isn't. There's no exact science. It is going to be a rough ride. Can I thank, right, I'll put my old lady glasses on just for the last bit because I'm not squinting. I noticed I squint enormously at the screen last week. 215 people currently watching. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. To anybody who's going to ask me, can I share this? Yes, that's the whole point. Share it to everybody. To anybody in the groups who I've mentioned, if you want to put a link in the bottom of this, please do it. Anybody who thinks that we've got something that's sort of useful or helpful, please put it in. I'm sorry if I'm not responding, but someone's probably looking at it. Your Legal Fairy Godmother Facebook has opened the private group today. If you want to join that, just crack in there. I'm trying to press the button to get you all in as well. And there's loads of resources in there. And we'll get up in the morning and we'll start again at tackling this. I wish you all a very good night. Again, thank you for all your support. I really, really appreciate it. And I'm sorry I can't wave a magic wand and make it go away. But we'll try and do the closest that I can within the time and the limits that I have. Good night. Stay safe, people. Keep watching the news. Keep tracking what's going on. It will come to an end. It will come to an end. And when it bloody does, I'll be the first person having a party. You take care. See you soon. Take care.